the fact that it was Ayrton who was like a leader. He was the beacon. He was the big star in our business at that time. Ayrton Senna was a god.
In 1985, in the pouring rain, in that John Player Special Lotus, the iconic shot with both his arms out of the cockpit, incredible. Give us a little bit of insight for the anchors here. Come on, how did that all come about? You managing Adrian, how did that come to be?
Simple as saying, we're talking away, and who pitches up? And in walked Zach Brown. It was hilarious.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for listening to FFS. And we have a very exciting announcement. On Friday, the 24th of May, Eddie and I will be recording a live session of the podcast in Monaco. It'll be at the Red Eye Events Harbour Club Villa at Saint-Devote. Come see us, enjoy the hospitality and the amazing views of the first corner. Get your tickets from redeye-events.co.uk. Hello and welcome to FFS. I'm David Coulthard, and raring to go on screen opposite me is Eddie Jordan.
It's me, and I'm sort of looking forward to this. This is my look what's going on here, David. I've got my own kit. I've got my own speaker. I don't have to be sitting opposite you. You don't have to be spraying me with that saliva that you've got. This is a much more healthier option, I have to tell you.
This is a COVID-friendly, if we remember those dark days of our life, COVID-friendly version.
Yeah.
Well, I don't recognise your background there. We've done this remotely many times, but that's new artwork in the back. Are you in one of your various properties?
I've had that about 20 years. I'm in the Jordan kitchen in Monaco, and everything revolves in Ireland around a kitchen. And, the making of the dinner, the talking, the television, everything revolves. And you only go to the sitting room when it's a very special occasion. Or if you came to visit us, we'd go to the sitting room because it needs to be something special. And as a result, I think that this programme needed to be in the heart of the house, which is the kitchen. Ask your mother.
I will indeed. I've spent many, many days in the kitchen with my mum growing up. Happy days indeed.
Absolutely.
Waiting to lick
the
spoon. Absolutely, waiting to lick the spoon from one of her baking extravaganzas. Well, EJ, it's nice that you're in the heart of your household. What it does make me realise is you've been invited to my place many times. I don't think I've ever been invited to yours.
Just changing the subject slightly. DC, you've got another pair of very cool glasses. What's with these? These are roundy ones, not the square ones or the rectangular ones.
Exactly. Well, I've been sporting a whole bunch of just bought them down the chemist type glasses, but these are more bespoke. And the bottom are 2.5 to enable me to read. And the top, there's no correction, so I can not have to keep taking them off all the time when I want to look up, and because I'm long-sighted naturally, which was really handy. As a driver, I could see the incidents well in advance, but not particularly good for working on a computer. That and the aging process eventually catches up with you.
But David, you saw the incident miles in advance, but you did shag all to avoid it. You were usually straight into it. I mean, come on, you caused more accidents than any other driver that I know, multiplied by 2. Is this true?
No, it's not. I was not the moth to the flame that you're claiming. Although I did cause a couple of accidents, I'll accept that. You
blamed Irvine on a continual number of occasions. And he was
Talking
here.
Of which,
yes.
I saw him. I didn't see him in Monaco for the historics because it was it was secret. It was my girlfriend's birthday weekend. So we weren't actually in town for the weekend. But I did see him in Miami and had a wee chat with him quickly for television. And, he's mellowed. He's living the good life. I think... the Northern Irish and the Southern Irish, you were able to broker your own peace in that situation. And I think he probably taught you a few things, and you definitely taught him a lot of things.
The things he taught me, I don't think I could tell you on this programme. Jesus. Eddie Irvine is one of those guys, you need to put your armory on, you need to put a helmet on, just like what you used to do when you start fighting with Michael Schumacher, but things like that. A funny little story about Irvine, if I may just interject here. He was always a bigger fan of my wife Marie than he thought that I was. But anyway, the reality was he used to come and.
I wondered where you were going with that.
I'm not sure where I was
a bigger fan of your wife.
Anyway, he was close to Marie, so he used to sneak in the morning time when he lived in Oxford and have a cup of tea and coffee and sit in. So it was no surprise when we went to Macau and he started living quite a bit of time in the Far East, and he loved Japan. But he married this girl called Marie, and I thought, oh, that's very strange. Why would he do that? Because I'm married to a girl called Marie, and he's Eddie, and I'm Eddie, so it was kind of ridiculous. So eventually they wound up having a little baby girl, and to my total surprise, his total surprise, he called the baby Zoe. And of course, we have an Eddie Marie Zoe, and he has an Eddie Marie Zoe. Now, I'm not sure that's a coincidence or not, but I thought it was quite funny. But that's Eddie Irvine for you. He's a lunatic. He did send me a lovely little message. He said, EJ, I'm very pleased to see yourself and Adrian Newey both have nice new oysters. By the way, here's a photograph of my water boat, which with the pontoons and stuff. He said, I'm going to move it out of the way on the hope that you boys can come and join me, and I'll moor you up at the back of Exuma, whatever the name of his island is. But Eddie is a sharp tool. Let's make sure everyone understands that. If anyone has a way of making money, Eddie Irvine is so sharp, and he's become so adorable. He's a real top guy.
He is indeed. And maybe then, EJ, if you're struggling for people to join you on that boat trip to to Eddie Irvine's island, then I'm available.
Oh, okay. So we could we could get your company Whisper to pay for it, and we could
I'm not that available.
We could fake it as a podcast, perhaps on the island. Eddie Irvine, DC, and EJ has a good ring to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, okay. Well, tell you what, that sounds like the one that our big new sponsor that we're working on for the podcast. That sounds like the launch. That sounds like the launch event, having Irvine there. But anyway, shall we move things along?
Yes, please.
Because this weekend, it's the San Marino Grand Prix, otherwise known as Emilia Romagna. Emilia, of course. And it's 30 years since the tragic loss of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna. And of course, not only due to those two terrible tragedies, but of course your own driver, Rubens Barrichello, had a very serious accident on the Friday, where testament to the good fortune of where he made impact with the barrier and the strength of the Jordan car. He got away with, I think fractured a bone in his arm and broke his nose, which is obviously bad, but nothing in comparison to what, of course, we saw on the Saturday and Sunday.
As soon as the session was over, I went to the medical centre. I saw Prof. Watkins, and they said, listen, he's going to be fine. He was sent for observations to the hospital, and I said, which one is he in? And I got one of the team guys to drive me there as quick as possible. And when I got there, which was absolutely ridiculous, that could not understand how he was finished a session, debriefed, and was there before me, and that was Ayrton Senna. Because Ayrton was the main reason I signed Rubens. He was a 19-year-old young up-and-coming guy. He did Formula 3000 with us. And as you well know, David, you probably know him because he's not far removed from your vintage or when you were around at the time.
Yeah, we raced against each other since 1990.
Yeah.
So
you know him from Formula 3000.
Absolutely.
And so all the way up, Ayrton pointed out to me, he said, look, yes, go, take a chance. You will really not regret it. No one had really heard about him at this stage. And I took the chance and he was right. Rubens was a great addition to the Jordan team. Anyway, this crash happened. Ayrton was there on the Friday and we talked, and then once I arrived, he left very quickly because he knew I wanted to see Rubens and his report back to his family in Brazil as to, how he was and take photographs, and people need to be reassured that this is not just talk on a telephone, that it's real. And little do we know that, 24 hours, 48 hours later, where Ayrton would be, and indeed where Roland Ratzenberger would be. It was, for me, the all-time worst weekend that I can ever remember. I'm just talking about life. Because, you think about 9/11, you think of catastrophes, and you think of tsunamis, and you think of many other things. But Imola on the 1st of May, 1994 rushes back to my mind on such a continual basis that it's left an indelible mark on my brain, that it just comes rushing in at any given moment. And, the pain of seeing with the Simtek, the pain of Roland Ratzenberger, who for sure wasn't as well known as Rubens or Ayrton, but nevertheless was such a great joy to have in the paddock. What a great looking guy he was. And he started that influx of Austrian drivers. And I loved Roland. He was great.
Roland I didn't know, but I have met his father several times over the years. Whenever I go to any events in Austria, his father's there, always proudly wearing his son's racing hat. And that's I think only a parent can know how that, of course, lives with you for the rest of your life. But
Ayrton had the ability of walking into a room, and if there was 300 people in a room, that 300 people would freeze, because such was the awe and just the awareness and the belief in this person that, that very seldom happens with mega people. It has to be something that is earned. It has to be something that is style, panache, greatness, just total awesome guy. And that's what he had. He had that ability.
Yeah, I totally agree, EJ. I experienced that firsthand. What you described there is when Ayrton walked into a room. I remember when he was being officially unveiled as a Williams driver and I was a test driver. And we were in Portugal, in Estoril, which you'll remember well. That's where he actually won his first Grand Prix in 1985 in the pouring rain in that John Player special Lotus, the iconic shot with both his arms out of the cockpit. Incredible.
He was a wet master. There was nothing quite like him. And the funny thing is, he learnt a lot. Rubens Barrichello learnt a lot from Senna in terms of his driving style in the wet. And for those people who like to drive and stuff, I learned something amazingly, because way back in '82, Senna drove his first ever Formula 3 car. I think we've said this on the podcast before, in Silverstone in a Jordan Formula 3 car. So I was lucky enough to see him and give him his first chance. But what was remarkable, David, when he was going in the corners, when it was wet, he always felt that the inside of the track was slipperier. And the reason being is because most people funnel their way into the inside of the track, and the grip is not as good there as it is on the outside of the track, because naturally the water kind of drains down into the center of the track. And he had this philosophy: by staying high, he could keep on the brakes later. He could actually go through in the corner. There would be better grip for him. And I'm not sure if this is something that you found in your time of racing, but he had a very unique way of driving in the wet, which was so strong, so powerful, and believe it or not, so successful. That's his best times I've ever seen Ayrton was in his wet.
So EJ, traumatic weekend indeed. And I remember you telling me a story that really moved me about the flight home. Most of the teams being based in the UK, of course. There used to be the Formula One charters, and you were on that flight.
Never in my lifetime had it ever happened prior to that, and did it ever happen after that, because we were one of the teams that went on the Formula One travel, and as a result we would hire, or they would hire, a couple of planes or big planes or whatever, and going back to the UK that night, it will be just Formula One personnel. And it's the only time that I can absolutely be certain that not one word was mentioned. I don't even think there was service on the plane. No one said a word to each other, and there was just total and absolute respect or disbelief, or what the hell has happened here? This was the most frightening weekend of all our memories of Formula One weekends. And, the fact that it was Ayrton who was like a leader, he was the beacon, he was the big star in our business at that time. Ayrton Senna was a god, and as I said before, he just mesmerised people. He was that good. And that was a measure of the man. No one said a word from the start of the flight to the very end of the flight. And it's something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, what a lovely way to tribute what was an extraordinary career, an extraordinary man. So in memory of Roland and Ayrton, 30 years ago last weekend, I believe. On a more positive note, we just had the historic Grand Prix in Monaco, and you know what I think was fun there, EJ. You were interviewing our friend Adrian Newey, but what was really interesting running up to the fact that you were going to do that interview was, of course, when the news dropped that Adrian would be leaving his contract from Red Bull early. He did a special thank you to his manager, none other than 76-year-old Eddie Jordan. So your finger is well and truly still in the pie, you mucky boy, you.
DC, what I'm worried about you just for the advantage of the anchors out there. Anchors, do you know what he called me? Do you know what he called me when he found this? First of all, his jaw was somewhere around near the end of his trousers. And because, you know, it's quite a big jaw in the first place. So to actually go that depth, it's actually, yeah, he could do it. It's a fairly extensive jaw. But he called me, EJ, you're a fucking silent assassin. So I don't know what a silent assassin is. Maybe you could tell us, DC. What is that?
Well, you'd rather be a silent assassin than somebody hearing you coming. You know, no one saw that coming at all. Nobody knew you were managing Adrian.
Oh,
and
wasn't going to tell you, was I? Why would I tell you? Sure, you're the Scottish
assassin.
bugle. You're a bugle.
Scottish bugle. I've not heard that before. Anyway, well done you for working with your buddy and advising your buddy. And I'm sure he's going to be in a happy place as he is. He's waiting for his boat to arrive. Yeah. But how was? Give us a little bit of insight for the anchors here. Come on, how did that all come about?
Which one?
And
about
what is the
DC? About me and
you managing Adrian?
Well,
how did that come to be?
Simple, I think. Well, first of all, I think you'd have to give some credit to Ian Phillips. Ian was his team principal way back in Leighton House days, and that was the late 80s. That's how far I go back with Adrian. Some funny stories right through, and you know, I was always a little bit apprehensive about because Adrian is so super clever. I'm often thinking to myself, should I be in the same room as this guy? Because you know, he thinks different to me, he looks different to me. The only thing that we have perhaps in common is a total and absolute love for music. Behind that person is a complete rock star. And he's at some, you know, Glastonbury doesn't happen without him. The Isle of Wight Festival, he's locked into all sorts of things musically, so that's cool. And anytime we're in Cape Town, we always wind up in the same places. And then, of course, we cycle an awful lot together. And over the years, he'd say, oh, Eddie, I'm not happy about this, or I love that, or I think about that, and what about this? And then we'd go sailing, and then he'd say, you know, I really like this. This is a nice way of getting a bit of downtime from motor racing. It's driving me mad, you know. And as he was becoming more and more successful, we have to remember that we know how many world championships he's won for drivers and teams, totaling now 25. And I dare say, with the way Max is going at the moment, he'll add to that this year, because I must remind everybody, he's still very much a part of the Red Bull team as we speak. And he's absolutely determined to make sure that you know, when he does leave, it will be in a celebration, and so it should be, because what he's brought to every team that he's worked with, from Leighton House to Williams to McLaren, and then on to, of course, where you are, and you're a great catalyst of that, because I query his judgment, because he classifies you as one of his great friends, DC, I must tell you. And that's a concern for me, because I'm wondering where this logic comes from. However, the answer is that I say to him, you know, Adrian, when you have a pencil in your hand and you're looking at a drawing board, there is absolutely no one you're equal. But you take the pencil out of your hand and you become just a normal dick like the rest of us. And so he kind of chuckles at that, but I'm sure he probably thinks I'm being very cheeky. But I'm not being cheeky. I'm serious. He's just a normal guy. Take him away from the racing. But, you know, inside that brain, there must be something really smart going on a regular basis, because he continually gets it right. Particularly with the new rule change coming up shortly. I must tell you that He is the genius when it comes to evaluating how to take advantage of those rules, how to get the best out of them, and how to make sure that the team and the car maximizes in very avenue that he can possibly get. So you should know, you're probably the one who should be making this conversation here at DC, because you've actually worked with him in Formula One as a race engineer. And you know, and our good buddy Mark Webber was his best man at his last wedding. I mean, he does get through as many weddings as you do, doesn't he? I mean, that's another thing that I'm worried. You two are well connected.
Not at all. I've only been married once. Thank you very much. It's other people who've got a love of wedding cake. So, right, here's what the anchors really want to know. Where's he going next?
I think he left here on
listen
Sunday.
To the hesitation. Listen to you like an old engine trying to start.
He's currently in England, and I suggest anyone should ring him. I mean, my particular job was, of course,
You're his manager.
Yes.
Don't sit on the fence, EJ. Answer the question.
No, you're the one who sits on the fence here. I really, truthfully, and this is a question that I'm happy in a straight face, look at you and look at the anchors and think carefully. Right of this moment in time, I loved the interview that he gave on Saturday night, DC, you were away. It was Ingrid's birthday celebrations, which were magic, I'm told. But here's what he said. He said, when he was growing up, his father was a vet, but his father was always wanted to be an engineer, not necessarily a vet. And when he got to 62, he tried to retire. And then when he got to 65, he did retire, but he always regretted it. And I remember those last couple of words very clearly. And I could be wrong. My view is, on one side of me, I'm saying he's 66. He's got MMTT, which is more money than time. So he doesn't need to be going down that route. He can make a living for the rest of his life doing what he's done. However, I think, there's probably another season involved with him as to what he can do or not do in terms of another contract. But that will be him. My role is very clear. I can gather the information, I put it on a paper. I'm not even making my recommendation. He will actually say to me from time to time, what would you do if you were me? And I would say, well, look, this is how I see it. But, I may be biased towards you going back racing. I may be biased towards you going on an Oyster World Rally and go around the world, which I've done. So he can see the compatibility. We're actually, in lots of different ways, understand each other's mentality. Amanda has to be part of that configuration as well. She has very clear, she's a younger girl, and as a result, she might want to continue racing if that's important to both of them as a family. Or she might say, well, we'll put the dogs on the boat, let's train them properly, and let's head off. As of this moment in time, I have no idea what will actually happen.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, that's absolutely fair enough. Here's what I would like to see happen. I'd like to see him just be happy. And clearly, if he's reflected on a contract that was signed a year or so ago and decided he doesn't want to be part of that contract longer term, that has to come from a space of doubt or unhappiness. And, sometimes chasing the next opportunity, thinking that's going to bring you happiness, you can end up having regret. So whatever it is, I wish him all the very best. I know what I would do if I was him at 66 years old with, what did you say, more money than time?
MMTT, remember.
I would be on that boat quicker than you could see me pack my Speedos. I'd be in the budgie smugglers. I'd be like, the dogs will either learn to cock a leg over the side, or sadly, the dogs are going to have to stay with the Guardian.
Enough. So let's just finish on that, because, in life, you get to a stage and you have to say, shit, man, I've got to make a decision. What did I say? Pee or get off the potty. And that's exactly what it is, isn't it? And he's at that level. Sure, it's always a daunting. You know what it was like to retire from racing. It's not an easy decision because
It was absolutely fine, Eddie. I'm talking over you for this simple reason. When you sold your company, you sold it because it was the right thing for you to do at that time.
timing was
And
perfect.
I haven't seen you regret it for a moment. And I never regretted retiring as a driver. And that is where you and I can share our life-changing knowledge with those that don't know.
Exactly.
Because
But it is at the
one door closes, another one opens.
And you know, the fact that we're still here after all of those years, and when we did the BBC and then we did Channel 4 and we're now at Whisper and we're now doing this programme. But David, we've been kind of stuck to each other's shoulders for a very long time. And I am sure, and incidentally...
That's because we love each other, AJ.
And incidentally, when we finally get rid of you, I'm going to vote to get Adrian back in instead because he's been fantastic. And you should be voting for me out and Adrian in, because at the programme that we did in the Yacht Club, we got 230 people to turn up. And I cannot tell you how many world champions were there, ranging from your mate, your ex-team partner, Mika Hakkinen, there was Stefan Johansson, there was Eddie Irvine, there was Mark Webber, there was endless, Ray Bellum, world champion of sports cars, and of course the man himself, the rally king, which Ari Vatanen. So, you know, we had an amazing evening of really cool and logical people just to hear what Adrian was talking about, mainly about boats and oysters and his belief about the future. It hadn't got a lot to do with Formula One, and that's what made
Absolutely. But you know what's very difficult to do? It's very difficult to share all those wonderful stories when you're in a drawing office with a pencil at a drawing board. So there's where I'm encouraging you to encourage him to set sail on a new adventure, because otherwise it'll be more of the same. Pressure, expectation. Formula One is bigger than it ever has been, and that means more and more recognition. And, you know, I know you love the limelight and you love people calling out your name, but I'm not sure that's important.
Let's hear that again, please, David. Come on, let me hear it. So,
I'm not sure it's important to Adrian.
it's definitely not important. I will finish on this note about Adrian, and that is anchors can think what they want, and anyone listening to this programme. But one thing I will absolutely 100% guarantee is that at no stage ever did Adrian Newey either talk to, engage in, negotiate with, precipitate in any shape or form of any other team other than Red Bull. He was a committed and is a committed Red Bull personnel, and that's what's so nice about this guy. You know, there's nothing sleazy or backward or behind the door or anything. He's just so easy to look after.
Here. I find Adrian a remarkable individual. I've thoroughly enjoyed having the life-enhancing experience of having worked with him through Williams, McLaren and Red Bull, and having shared many good times with him away from the racetrack.
Let's move on.
Two very separate things. Right, moving on. Hey, by the way, Lando Norris in Miami.
Brilliant.
I loved it.
You know what I thought? There was all the speculation, of course. I forgot to mention when I was name dropping those people at the show on Saturday night. So there's myself and Adrian on stage and we're talking away, and who pitches up, which adds fuel to the fire. We're talking about, where are you going next, Adrian? Come on, tell us. And in walked Zach Brown. It was hilarious. I said,
on cue.
On cue.
Well, Zach was racing in the historic as well as
and what I
Adrian.
didn't realise, they both travelled there together and they both went home together. So there's a great friendship there. They go to the States, they race in the old historic cars. Zach Brown and Adrian are great friends. Whether that makes it a true marriage for the future or whatever is going to happen, that'll be their decision, not mine. And I may be asked to discuss it, but it'll be always Adrian's decision. Having said that, Zach was in special form, and we gave him a round of applause.
And they won a Grand Prix. It was brilliant.
I made the point, and I said, "Look, guys, everybody here, I'm telling this from the heart, and that is I was and have been critical of Zach in the way he handled the Honda situation, and I was critical about the situation with Alonso at certain times. But in recent years, And certainly in recent months, I have had to change my view, change my opinion. And what Zach has done inside McLaren has been, it's just a complete change of fortune. They look a very strong outfit. Particularly, I would have said that Lando won the race because he got lucky with the pit stop. It's not true. If you look at the difference and what the gap he pulled out after that stop over somebody of the magnitude of the talent of Max Verstappen, Lando Norris is a megastar. But we've been saying that for ages. And, it's just a way and, giving him the bumps and the jumps. He deserved every bit. I was overjoyed. But I think it was brilliant for Formula One, by the way. That it was 100% brilliant for Formula One.
And what was so great about it is it was a genuinely happy victory. We know Max has been the most successful driver over the last few years, but that he was genuinely happy that if he's not winning, it's someone that's a friend, someone that he spends a lot of time with. And you just saw the other drivers as well taking the time out to go and congratulate. Yeah. I think, a Lewis, a Fernando, guys that have won many Grand Prix, won World Championships, they know how special it is. And they know that in many ways it's overdue. So he dutifully followed Daniel Ricciardo home in Monza a few years ago when Daniel got that one solitary victory for McLaren. And look, it was great to see. So long may that competitive battle continue. Now we roll very quickly along we're just ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix, and you and I are going to be doing one of our podcasts at a buddy of ours, Nigel Essam, who's got a company called Red Eye Events. He's got the Harbour Club Villa at Saint Devote. And on the afternoon of Friday the 24th, I think it'll be around 3 o'clock-ish, but we'll get that confirmed. So people can actually come along. Anyone that's at the Grand Prix, they can get some tickets to come along and hear us recording live and interacting with them. So that's going to be pretty fun.
I mean, the Harbour Club Villa, Saint Devote, it's such an amazing location right as the cars turn right to go up the hill immediately after the start. It's iconic, but Monaco is iconic anyway. But to be there, and then perhaps for those poor people who want to subject themselves even further, they can listen to you and me, DC, talking an absolute source of rubbish, I'm sure. But anyway, hopefully we will find it somewhat entertaining and everyone will go home happy.
Well, remember, you can get in touch with the show by emailing ffs@whisper.tv and by following us on social media at F1 for Success. EJ, always a pleasure.
Am I growling?
My God, still there.
Yeah,
so powerful
and strong.
Some people lose the pipes once they get in their 70s. But no,
I don't know where you get your pipes from, David, but I tell you what, I can never see you losing them.
Top 1%. I told you that in a previous show. Bye, EJ.
Oh, we better get off this here. But bye-bye.